Good evening. We're going to go ahead and call the December board meeting to order, not work meeting. We've already had one of those this month. So we'll go ahead and start off with the roll call. I'll turn it over to Ms. Kinzer.
Ms. Parker, Ms. Martin, Mr. Pennings, Mr. Moore, Mr. Atkinson, Mr. Bates, Mr. Beaver, Ms. Powers, Ms. Morency, and Mr. Dudley.
Thank you, Ms. Kinzer. We do have 6 board members present, and hopefully some more will filter in. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and begin our work. And the next item is Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will have a moment of silence. If you will stand. All right. Everyone should have a copy, a reminder about what our mission is. And then we will move on to the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? There is one change that we have, and that is under the consent items, 7G, the renewal of student management software. We're going to move that from the consent, but we will move that down to other business. That'll be 10. Let's do that as 10.5A. So it'll be on the same sheet. Cool. Any other changes to the agenda? Just at the bottom of your page. Motion and a second. Motion by Ms. Kinzer, second by Mr. Moore. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. That motion did pass. We'll now move on to recognition and announcements, and I'll turn that over to Dr. Woodard.
All right, good evening, Chair Parker, Dr. Marzak, and distinguished board members. Tonight I have the pleasure of commending 2 outstanding Murray County Public Schools employees for their hard work and dedication to the school system. Up first is Kara Skaggs. Kara has provided leadership and direction to the Murray County Academy of Professional Development, also known as MAP. In the last session that we had here at Columbia Central High School, it was a student-led session where students led professional development for teachers, and it was very well received. It was very well attended by teachers, and we also had a large number of parents on site to attend the sessions as well, and the parents were extremely pleased at seeing their children present and take the lead in leading teachers in technology integration. So it was very good. Through MAP, Kara has created a culture where professionalism and content expertise are now thriving here in Maury County Public Schools. Kara has been with Maury County Public Schools for 18 years. She started her career as a teacher at Riverside Elementary School. Then she moved up to being a literacy coach at Marvin Wright Elementary School. Her hobbies include reading and traveling. Her motto is that kids always come first. And right now she's currently completing her doctorate at Middle Tennessee State University. And she serves us as the coordinator of school improvement. So with no further ado, I'd like to salute and commend Ms. Kara Skaggs. I got a little gift for you. And if we could have board members, if you come down, we want to get a picture with Kara, please. Dr. Marzak, board members. Sure, however you want to do it. You maybe have a seat next to Lou. Yep. And the second one is Miss Lou Emma McWilliams. She's the Dean of Students at Northfield Academy. She's provided great leadership during the transition of Northfield Academy here to Horace O. Porter from the Northfield campus here to Horace O. Porter now. Ms. McWilliams has graduated 65 students in less than a year. It's very impressive since taking the position. She took the position back in January, and already she's graduated 65 students. And on Thursday, Ms. McWilliams will graduate another 18 students. So she's got an impressive track record already. She has worked tirelessly to provide academic integrity and safety of all students in the program, and students commonly and affectionately call her Mama McWilliams because of her love and kindness for the students. Several students who normally would have dropped out of high school are getting a second chance at Northfield Academy, and she's leading that charge, and she's actively pursuing students who may consider dropping out, and she's getting those students to come here to Northfield, and those students are being very, very successful. Lou McWilliams has been employed with us for 25 years. She started her career back in 1992. She has a very interesting hobby, and board members, I'd like you whip out your cell phones right now. Get out your cell phones, board members. She is a member of the American Budrigar Society, and the first board member who can tell me what a Budrigar is will win a special prize. You got 20 seconds. Whip out your cell phone. Budrigar. She is a member of the American Budrigar Society, and the first one of you who can tell me what a Budrigar is will win a special prize from me. A Budrigar. Spelled B-U-D-G-E-R-I-G-A-R, Budgerigar. What is a Budgerigar? Marzak, you do not count. Got to be a board member. Me neither till today. Boom, we got a winner, David Moore. Now, Mr. Moore, surprisingly, we had a bet, and we said we bet that you would be the first person to get it, and you were. Congratulations, Mr. Moore. Got you a little gift here. Lava lamp for Mr. Moore. Clap it up for him. Lava lamp for Mr. Moore. So, a budgerigar is a parakeet. Lou McWilliams is a bird lover, a bird watcher. So, she judges bird shows all over the United States. Just kind of an interesting fact about Lou Emma McWilliams. Miss McWilliams, we knew that you were a strange bird, but now we have proof. But Miss McWilliams, we want to thank you for your service and for your dedication and for your commitment to the students and families here in Maury County Public Schools. And I have a letter of commendation and a gift for you as well. Let's salute Miss Lou Emma McWilliams. And board members, if you would come down for a quick photo.
I guess I'm the photo person. I was designated photo person. I was designated photo person, so tell me when everybody's ready. You guys ready? All right, I will take a plethora. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Thank you. Perfect. All right. Lou Emma, you're up next. Congratulations. All right, is everybody ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Woodard, for those recognitions, and we appreciate the work that both of those ladies have done for Murray County Schools. Our next item is the Murray County Education Association, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Huebner.
A tough act to follow. Is that a bird feeder you got? Oh my gosh, a bird feeder would have been appropriate too. That's so current and trendy if you live in the 70s. Good evening, board members, Chair Parker, Dr. Marzak, office staff, central office staff. Appreciate y'all being here tonight. Last week at the Night of Big Ideas, Tuesday night at Central High School, I was surprised. In fact, I was even stunned by what I call the fortress of great ideas that those students presented. You know, if any district adopted some of those ideas, or even most of them, and some were on track to getting around to doing it, would, I think, really rock education, move us toward making the progress that all of us want to see in our county. I love the ideas because they were fresh, they were original, and they really showed a grasp of what was going on in our schools. Teachers and students are on the front lines. We're there every day. We don't expect you to be. You have other jobs. We know that. But perhaps that's why a lot of teachers, parents, and school board members that were there resonated with that Collegiate Academy presentation. Now, one of the presentations focused on technology. Mr. Carver and I have been talking a lot about technology the last few months. The presenters never discounted the value of technology, but they did insist that the teacher's far more important than any tech resources. Again, they didn't discount it, but they talked about the role of the teacher. Here's what they said in the presentation on technology. Which connection is more powerful, the connection of networks or the connection of people? Maybe we should focus on the power of connectivity between the teacher and student. Maybe we should be improving our student-to-teacher ratio instead of improving our student-to-device ratio. I know we're looking at both. Although great technology is beneficial, a great teacher is essential. Teachers bring out the best learner in all of us. So in the education reform movement, a lot of times I think the most obvious things get ignored or overlooked. And that's what I want to talk to you tonight about. In many classrooms, I believe we don't have enough inclusion help from our amazing special ed teachers and assistants. There's just not enough of them to go around. They are so busy during the day. A lot of it's paperwork, but I'm not sure of all the other reasons. I don't know everything that they do, but it's very difficult. For example, in my 7th period U.S. history class, I have 26 students. 13 have IEPs, half the students. Because I have so many needs in that class, it's extremely difficult to provide them the individual help that I would like to give them, that's necessary for them to learn at what I call maximum possibility. So I want to challenge our central office and school board to come up with the needed funding for more teaching assistants and more special ed teachers soon, or in next year's budget, whenever we can do that. We can't forget that students, those students that I kind of say are at the edge of our classroom rosters, that's the way we look at them sometimes. They're just as important, and teachers can't possibly, though, provide all the help that they need. When we have so many of them and so few teaching assistants and special ed teachers, what I'd like us to do is look at next year's budget, raise the priority of these students that we often call marginalized, but we've got a way to change that. So what are the benefits? Increased learning, decreased boredom, because they get bored. Some of them do demand a lot of attention, and I can't give that to all of them. They get frustrated. Sometimes they get angry. Sometimes they lose their temper. But I think if we can meet that need, we can improve our graduation rates, but more importantly, their success rate and their own value of self-worth, because a lot of times they're measuring themselves by the people in there that are being exempt from exams and getting great grades, and that's really difficult when half your students that 7th period are special ed or with IEPs. I think above all, we can teach them those life skills that we can give them when I have the personnel resources to help to assist all students. I think it's like an elephant in the room. We call that a lot of things in life, but it's one of those things we've kind of ignored. And so I'd like us to recommit to helping those students, including those with special needs and IEPs. And I know some of that staff is here, and Ms. Ventura is in here right now, but I'm going to try to follow up with her and see what ideas we can work on. But a lot of it probably just boils down to funding. I do want to thank you for listening throughout this year. We may not always agree, but I'm glad there's always dialogue. And MCA truly thanks you for your public service to our county. I hope your Christmas is blessed and your New Year great, and I hope Santa Claus is nice to you this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Huebner, and thank you for bringing out a topic that sometimes we don't take the time to really delve into. And so as we start working on the budget for the coming year, we appreciate you bringing that to the forefront. Officer, can you check and see if we have anybody signed up for the public delegations sign-up sheet on the? All right. Thank you for that. We do not have any staff reporting, I don't believe. So we will move on to the consent items. Are there any items on the consent item anybody wants to pull? Remember, we did pull item 7G, and we'll vote on that one separately.
I move we adopt items A through L and exclude G.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kinzer. Do we, second by Mr. Moore? Any discussion on that? Seeing none, we are ready to vote. That motion did pass. We'll now move on to the committee reports. And I think we covered most everything for zoning and facilities, Mr. Breeden, at the work session, so all that got moved down to the FYI. And then policy committee, we do have a couple of policies to consider. One for final adoption and then I think one for posting the required amount of time. Do we have a motion on either of those? To approve the one to be posted the final time and one to be posted? So, motion second from Mr. Beaver. Is there any question or discussion about those? Those are both in relation to us switching from committee meetings to work sessions, and the one to be posted addresses the compensation aspect of that. Seeing no lights, I think we are ready to vote.
Please vote.
That motion did pass. Community relations, I don't believe we had anything. Ms. Powers is not here tonight, so we'll move on to new business. I don't think there's anything under new business. So other business, instructional. Nothing in A, B. Nothing in A or B, so that'll take us to item 10C. We have a recommendation from central office for some increases in salaries.
Yes.
That was Dr. Marzak's recommendation, if you want to speak to that.
So if you look at the motion, basically what I've said what the salaries are to what the salaries would raise to. Should this recommendation pass, we've added the budget amendments under item XE for finance. And we currently have money in our current lines in order to make those happen. So we don't need to take money from BEP or money from fund balance to make those happen. So that's it.
All right. Do we have a motion? Motion to approve from Mr. Moore. Second from Ms. Morency. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Beaver?
Yeah. Dr. Marzak, did any of these positions, did they currently get a 3% pay increase?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and you're asking for how much more?
I'm asking to recommend to raise the chief of staff's salary. I believe it's 6,000 and raise the technology manager 3,000. 7983. Yes, sir.
Okay, so they're getting a 6-7% pay increase for this year.
If you guys choose to raise the salary to these competitive levels, and yes, that's the way it could be looked at. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, I just want you to know,
Yes, sir.
I can't support this.
I understand.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a motion and we have a second. Seeing no other lights, it looks like we are ready to vote on this.
Please vote. That's the wrong motion. This is Mary Lyons.
Yes, ma'am.
It's still on Murray Lines.
I'm going to take action, okay?
Do you want to do a roll call vote? And then she can edit it later.
We can do that. Ms. Kinzer? No. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Beaver?
No.
Ms. Morency?
Yes.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes.
Ms. Parker votes no. So that motion fails 3-3. Moving on, we'll go to Murray Alliance. This is a request based upon the work session. This came out of that, and there was a request that we go ahead and look at funding this out of fund balance. It had been on our to be funded from fund balance in previous board meetings, but we hadn't quite gotten there yet. Do we have a motion on this recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Motion from Ms. Morency, second from Mr. Beaver. Any discussion about this?
The only thing I'll just say that we did, I believe at the last time around, I would like to see this budgeted into the annual, as a cost every year. If we're gonna do it, that's how it should be done to be appropriate in my mind.
I would just say I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that the way that we're doing it right now really puts Murray Alliance in a precarious position, and it puts us in a position where we may not be fulfilling a commitment that we have already seen some fruits of their labor, and I think we all just need to be on the same page. If we're going to invest in this, we should probably put it in the operational budget going forward. But that did not happen this year, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, we're ready to vote.
Please vote. I'm watching it to see if when it takes it, what it says for the difficulty in that one. Ms. Kinzer, which way are you voting?
That motion fails 5-1. All right, we can now move on to Ms. Cagliano. No, we have to have 6 votes, so everybody has to vote unanimously on everything going forward tonight. Sorry.
Okay. Not sure how you wanted to proceed. Do you need to make a motion to discuss, or?
I thought I might just turn it over to you since you weren't able to be at the work session. If you wanted to, or at least open the floor up to board members if they would like to ask her any questions if you didn't have a chance. Otherwise, we can entertain motions.
Okay, I'm open to questions.
Seeing no lights for questions, do we have a motion with regards to the recommendations that, Mr. Beaver?
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. On, I know you mentioned about the employees that you're looking at replacing, is trying to hire the VACO employees. Is there any kind of added expense to hiring those people that we should know about?
No, sir, there's not. Typically, there is when you attempt to hire an employee from a consulting firm. But in the case of this particular circumstance, the owners of VACO have agreed to waive any kind of fees that would be associated to that, which are probably in the neighborhood of $50,000. And I just want to clarify, too, that as far as we will still post the positions and go through the process. However, I feel that there's a strong advantage to a few of the VACO employees considering them highly for it because of the fact that they've got, in some cases, a year under their belt of knowing everybody here, knowing our processes. They've engaged in Skyward training that you've paid for. It helps me to not have to hit the ground with all brand-new employees that have to get trained, and we got to pay more for Skyward and all of that. So that would concern me if we had to start over from scratch at payroll, especially.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
I have a question. If we approve this tonight, how soon will VACO be behind us?
The plan would be that we would post these positions however long HR requires. I don't know if it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And then we would go through the process of selection. As we would hire a position, then that VACO position would be vacated. I would like some overlap if it's not a VACO position so that they can pass on the information they've learned while they were here, so we can have a smooth transition. But I realize the goal is to get staffed with Murray County employees as soon as we can. So that would be what I would be working towards.
I don't think there's anything more important right now that we get a handle on accounts. And if this is what we need to do, and you're saying that the funds are available within the budget now, but it will affect the next budget.
That is correct.
Unless we make changes within some
Yeah.
way or another, or find savings.
Yes,
And that would be something you would hope to do.
yes.
Okay.
That would always be my goal, to try to get things more efficient and cut down on expenses.
And I know that I read that you're going to give HR some responsibilities that should be theirs where there's been some errors that were made.
Yeah, well, actually what happened was when we had the latest Skyward training, when you look at the way the system's set up and the steps that have to happen, the most important area of setting up the employees is the role of HR. And whatever the setup is, then that is what's exported or imported, whichever you want to look at it, to payroll. And they pay what the employee is set up to be paid as. So you don't really want payroll people working directly with employees. It's sort of a conflict of interest because they have the ability to cut checks. So you want all of the human relations things to happen in HR. And there's no fault here. It's just that when you guys first started, there was not a lot of coordination in the transition. And so people that maybe should have been involved in training, maybe the trainers got pulled off to something else, or maybe those people weren't scheduled right. I mean, I don't know. I can only guess. But now we've been able to go through 3 days of payroll and 3 days of HR. And the payroll people sat through the HR, and the HR sat through the payroll, so everybody knows what everybody else is supposed to be doing and how whatever they do affects the other person. So I think we have a good head start to use the system as it was designed, support it as it was designed, and people who maybe didn't get trained before feel better now because they have gotten the training they need, and we've been able to make corrections on the fly during the training. So I'm hopeful that we're in the right direction, and people are stepping up and taking their roles seriously.
I don't think any of us a year ago this week, when, the crash happened, thought that we would be a year later still concerned about these issues to some
Right.
degree. So my hope is that in approving these, that we're going to look at some stability, and I'm also going to say to you that I would expect that we'll find a way that this will not increase our budget demands, what we're asking for in this department, that there'll be ways that you can find savings that we can justify this going forward.
Hopefully, if it's at my degree of, if it's within under my
Absolutely.
umbrella,
Yeah.
I can certainly
Okay.
work
Thank you.
towards that end.
Thank you. How many VACO employees are there, and how many non-VACO employees on your department?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear what you said. Could you repeat that?
How many VACO employees and how many non-VACO employees are in your department?
At the moment?
Yes.
At the moment, there are 2 individuals working in payroll, and there is an individual working in the benefits specialist position, and an individual working as in your terms, manager of accounting. So that would be 4
It's 4 VACO employees?
currently.
Okay. And how many non?
How many non? We have a person working in accounts payable as accounts payable specialist, and then we have a person who is doing executive assistant / fixed assets / inventory. So 2.
2. Okay, if we're looking at hiring or trying to hire the VACO employees, how come this department is still in such disarray?
I wouldn't say it's in such disarray, especially after reviewing the analysis of the VACO, like what they walked into and the things that they have put in place. Things can go south quickly, and sometimes it takes years to get them back running straight. And you can have one day of mistakes that can haunt you for years. So, it's a work in progress. And we still may have some bumps in the road. I can't guarantee that we won't, only because sometimes we don't know about things until they're brought to our attention. So we certainly don't want mistakes. It makes our life hard, too, and whoever it's affecting. So certainly we want to, do the best and be the most efficient. But you also were probably lacking in the in-house leadership for these positions to be able to implement some new procedures and some new processes, because I think when they were recommended, or whatever they recommended as a consultant maybe wasn't really accepted from the Murray County employees altogether, because they were consultants. So maybe the fact that I'm in this position and I can do the inner workings with the executive team and explain things and why we're going in this direction and why I'm recommending these things. You know, maybe that's the connection that was maybe missing before.
Okay, we
Because I
found
feel
out,
really good about the people the jobs they're doing. I mean, I'm monitoring them on a day-to-day basis. And I think you've come a long way to what they walked into.
okay, we found out last week that there was a vendor invoice that's well over a year old that has not been paid.
Oh, I have an answer for that, and that's why that was pulled out of consent. I've contacted the vendor. They show no record that we show any bill past due, and so that's why I asked Chairman Parker to pull that out, put that out. So we need to split those out. Talk to him again as of this morning. He said, Chris, I still can't find that you owe us anything. You're up to date.
Okay,
So he has to pull that.
all right. Thank you.
Just a motion to approve the recommendations as presented.
Is that to approve the job descriptions and the salaries as recommended in her CFO recommendations? Oh, okay. For just the finance department, okay.
I think so. I don't know, do you need to improve the job descriptions as well, or is that another discussion? Okay, so I think we're good. I think it's the
Okay.
financial part.
Okay. So we have a motion to approve the financial portion, finance department, recommendations for for positions as redefined based upon the new job descriptions. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, seeing none, we are ready to vote. All right, so that motion does fail 4-2. So we will,
Ms. Parker, can I intervene?
yes.
Can I ask for direction from the board? Where would you guys like to go from here? Because this has basically, so if we wanted to take a look at the salaries or finance personnel, that's one thing. However, this was also to recommend adjusting the chief financial officer salary to 140, and the money is already in our budget. So can I ask for direction from the board about where I'm supposed to go from here?
As someone that voted no, I will just say that, I feel like we've been told that the house is on fire, the house is on fire. I feel like this is asking us to rebuild, instead of a one-story house, rebuild a two-story house.
Okay.
So until I have confidence that the salaries are necessary, I'm probably going to continue to vote no on these recommendations at this point, unless you can find the money out of your budget somewhere.
These are,
The money is
Going
in the
forward
budget.
for next year too. I want to know how we're going to pay for it for next year is my main concern.
Okay,
The
so-
additional BEP.
yeah.
Yeah, that's not a good enough answer for me, so I'll continue to vote no as long as we're going to pay for it out of additional BEP, because I look at that as money that is to go to our students and to our teachers. And until all of the needs for those groups are covered,
that'll
then
never
I'm going to
happen.
continue to vote no on this. That's just where I am right now.
Okay, just want to point out, though, that until you make a move off of square one, you will continue to have VACO employees, so that's fine.
Yeah,
Understand.
we have no.
You may not have a CFO, though.
So if this doesn't pass, we don't have a chief financial officer. Mr. Parliament is gone because Ms. Garigliano has taken over, and you've just voted to not approve her salary adjustment. So I need direction from this board because as of the time the gavel drops, we have no CFO. So I need direction from the board. What do I need to do?
I voted for it, and I think we need to move forward. I think we've got to get a hold of this, and I do think the salary is, that you negotiated maybe is more than we thought we would have to pay, but I think I at this point, I don't want another debacle. I think she's stepped into a difficult situation. She certainly hit the ground running, and I voted for it because I think we need to move forward.
Mr. Dudley?
I could probably live with the CFO item, but where my concern is with the VACO employees. I'm not happy with what VACO has done this past year. I think we were misled. Mr. Parliament came in and fed us a line of crap about what he was going to do for our department and how he was going to turn things around. And it's evident that that hasn't happened. And so I have no confidence in VACO employees, period. And so I don't want to give them preference over other people.
The transition will have to be longer then because I can't bring new employees in that don't know the software and don't know the processes without overlap. So sort of cutting me off at the ankles there.
Mr. Moore?
Make a motion to approve the Chief Financial Officer's change of salary based on the numbers presented.
We have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any discussion on that? Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'm ready to discuss too.
Go ahead.
Since y'all aren't going to let me just make motions and not talk about them. I can definitely understand to my fellow board members how we're kind of, everyone here feels stuck. Because I do too. But to be honest, where I'm at right now is I feel like we're finally making some progress. I could list off the problems I have with how this has happened. And again, to Ms. Gagliano, it's not directly towards you. This is functional here. I feel like we've brought someone in and we're paying for a person, not a position. And I don't feel like we were brought these salary numbers as positions. And I think this isn't the first time this has happened to us. And I think that's the frustration more board members are feeling right now on that. That said, I think we've got to move ahead with this. I mean, I don't agree with just saying no to this and letting it sit here because I don't think we can. I think we've got to move with something. So either we need to pass all of this, in my opinion, not just the CFO's salary, but the rest of it as well, because if we're going to agree that this is what the person that needs to move our CFO, our financial department forward, and these are the recommendations she's making, I have to trust that she's going to do that. I don't know whether the VACO employees are worth keeping or not. I have no idea. I don't know who they are. But if she's saying that we're going to trust that she's going to lead it, then we're going to have to say that she needs to make that call. That's just where we're at. Again, I don't like it. I feel like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. I think, again, I'm seeing a lot of head shaking. I don't think I'm the only one that feels that way. But it is what it is at this point, and I think this is really the choice we need to make right now. Now, that doesn't mean we may need to look at some things differently come budget season or come look at next year. I definitely would like for us to look at the process of how we're setting salaries for positions, not for people, because I don't agree with how that's happened, again, multiple times, that we've chased a person. Again, no offense to the people we've chased, but functionally, I don't think as an organization we continue to operate that way because we get a hodgepodge of pieces that don't fit. And we can't justify them later if that person's not here. Because to be honest, that's a concern I have with the salary, and I'm looking back over a 3-year period of being on this board of how we've changed some of these salary positions, and that's from superintendent down. We're not just hiring these people as a board and as a district. We have to look at what's the precedent we're setting for what these new positions are now being worth for the next person that fills that position and the next person. And I don't know if it's a trajectory we can sustain. So it's not as much about just one salary to me. It's can the district sustain the way this is going? That's a real concern of mine. But again, as a board, if we don't approve this, we need to sit down and have some serious meetings about what are we gonna do instead. Because I don't think we can just sit here and say, well, we're just not gonna do it and sit back and wait. Something needs to happen. I think we owe it to the rest of the employees and the rest of the people in the district and the kids too, to get this over with and move on. Again, I will say it for the millionth time. I don't like everything that's here. I don't like how it's happened, and if I could go back and do it differently, I would have us have some serious discussions about how to do it differently. But this is where we're at right now, and I just feel like that's really the only choice we've got, unless we as a board want to come back here and have some special meetings and just dig into this and somehow magically come up with an answer that doesn't cost this much and gets it done faster and better. And I don't see that happening. So that's where I'm at on this. I just would hope my fellow board members would support so we can move ahead on this.
I will ask, when we had the discussion during the work session, it wasn't like we won't have a CFO if we don't pass this. That was never the discussion at our work session. So again, I feel like we're kind of being held hostage right now based on decisions that we didn't really make as a board. And I'm struggling with that right now. And I think Mr. Moore brings up a lot of good points. When you approve a CFO salary of $140,000, I would imagine that lieutenants start making more money too. So it does trickle down to all these other positions. But then what does that mean for all the other departments? We just voted no on a raise for 2 employees that I know I worked with for 3 years. And honestly, I have nothing against either one of those employees. But we voted no in the budget season to that raise. And so I did not see a reason to change that midstream unless we're going to do it for everybody. And that's the same problem that I'm having with the CFO position, because we voted down, we never approved a salary of CFO of $140,000 in our budget. And when we had the conversation about it, and again, this is nothing against Ms. Gagliano, it's not about you. It really is not about you.
I left a position, you offered me a position at that salary, and I accepted, and I consider that a legal binding agreement. Yes, it involves me big time.
I understand that part of it. What I'm saying is the conversation with your boss that made that offer was that he had to find the money for that. And all I hear is, we're going to take it from the kids. And when there are things that aren't being approved that we have from fund balance, that we're continuing to have to take out of fund balance because we don't have money in our budget, I'm struggling with that. And this is going to have an impact next year. So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion on it?
All districts fund their HR department, their business office from local funding, because the BEP is a funding formula. It's not included in the formula, but it doesn't say you can't spend it on those items. That's just to clarify.
Well, if most people fund it from the local, then I think that this brings in our county commission even more so. And they did not approve a budget that approved a CFO at the level of $140,000.
I'm saying it's not part of the funding formula, but the BEP is a funding formula that doesn't dictate how you spend the money. So it's not part of the calculation that generates your dollars, but it can be part of how you spend it.
Any further discussion on this motion?
The only comment I have is, if we were to vote no on this, what happens tomorrow? We don't have a CFO, we don't have a department, we've still got VACO, we're paying them way more than we need to. We need somebody that has experience and can delve into this and straighten this out. And yes, I think all of us understand what David said and how we feel, but I think we need to get over this and move forward. I think we just have to. I don't mean we have to do it. I'm just saying I think it's the thing to do.
I think we're ready to vote. I don't see any other lights.
Thank you.
Yes.
7042.
Thank you. Yes, 7042.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
In regards to that, since we passed the CFO, but not the other part, are we going to expect to see that brought back to us?
Yes.
That's what I figured. All right.
Where's the money again coming from for the adjustment right now? I understood that we were going to wait to do her adjustment until like April when the money ran out, was what we were told before.
She found the money in current salaries in current areas. So,
Okay.
and we had the same for the financial positions, correct? That money was in the current budget. We didn't have to wait for BEP to roll in?
What that spreadsheet resulted in was a positive balance of 32,000 that could go towards the VACO bill. Because it was considering the first half of the year with no Murray County payroll people, the other positions that were not, you didn't have Murray County people, so that money was applied towards the second half of the year. So the result of that spreadsheet was a positive 32,000. And it covered everything that was recommended.
Thank you.
And the CFO needed a budget amendment because the money was in 72510 with object number 119, and it needs to be in 72510, but in object number 105. So that was the reason for the budget amendment.
Yeah, 7042.
All right. And with regards to the other positions, I mean, we currently have rates that we were paying people before. Can we not post these positions under those rates and see what applicants we get?
We can, correct, Ms. Gagliano?
From what I understand, they were posted previously during the Murray County days and during the VACO days, and you really didn't get any qualified applicants, so that's your call.
But let's post them and see what happens.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Don't leave yet. Sorry. What's the difference in what we're currently paying VACO for these positions and what you're asking for the positions to be paid?
I would have to do a reconciliation of the VACO bills because I don't know what their annual salary is.
Okay,
I just know
that's-
like monthly what they're being paid, so.
So it's one big,
Yeah,
so they're
it's a
not
billing, but
individual.
it's a billing that's itemized by person, but by the number of hours they're putting in. So I
Do
know
you-
that it's a
do you
salary
know-
plus the VACO override of being a consultant, so
Okay,
I don't know what that percentage is.
so you don't know what they're making an hour
I'll have to check the bills to see how that reads.
without the VACO surcharge on top of that?
Yeah, I'd have to do some research into
Okay,
that.
I don't want to put you into more, but that would be interesting just to
Okay.
know if we're offering them more than they're making now, or if we're offering them less than they're making now, or the same.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Moore?
Just to address that, Ms. Rentz, since I do, with what I do, I often have people that I place into organizations as well under consulting position. And if you look at it two ways, one, salary, I thought you were going the other direction. I would be willing to bet that the cost that it's going to cost us to keep them as VACO employees will far outweigh what we would be paying them, usually 1.5 times or 1.8 times, somewhere in that ballpark. So again, as some of you were considering this, the longer they are VACO employees, the more it's actually going to cost us. So just consider that. I'm not saying that one way or another, but if you're asking about cost, that is generally the ballpark of what you're looking at. Even though she doesn't have numbers, I'm pretty sure I'm close on that.
And then don't forget, we'll have to probably do another budget amendment for VACO costs because they're going to continue.
All right. We have a budget amendment to approve for Ms. Gagliano's salary. The rest of them, the other 3,000s are not applicable. Motion to approve. Do we have a second? We have a second. Do we have any discussion on that? Seeing none, we are ready to vote.
7042 only.
Kinzer. Or was it you, Denny? Sorry, Denny. Mr. Beaver. I'm sorry, I forgot you seconded it. Under budget amendments. 10:10. That budget amendment passed. We have one more item that we had pulled from the consent agenda, which was the renewal of the student management software.
Excuse me.
Oh, yes.
May I make a closing, a parting comment, just to give you something to think about as you're thinking about the rest of the staff for the financial office? Keep in mind that I was hired to be the leader of that group, and those positions are critical. We have to have someone in those seats every day doing those functions, and they have to be good at it in order for me to be successful. So that was my intent in developing the job descriptions the way I did and putting the emphasis on the particular positions with the higher salaries. So just leave you with that thought.
All right, going back, we have renewal of student management software that we had moved from the consent item, and that was what Dr. Marzak spoke to earlier about apparently one of the bills, we're not sure if it's still owed. I guess thanks to our finance department, we're still not sure whether or not it got paid correctly, or their finance department isn't sure. So the request is, the recommendation now is that we just pay the bill for this year, as I understand it, and we'll wait to
Yes.
hear from them on 2016, the 2016 bill.
And so the recommendation is to approve invoice 128177 at a cost of $23,949.41 for just this year.
Motion, do we have a second? Second from Ms. Kinzer. Mr. Dudley.
Is our finance department still in such disarray that we can't go back and look and figure out whether that invoice was paid last year or not?
No, sir, we can do that, but I wanted to touch base with Power School first
Okay,
to
and
determine why they're sending us these things.
And I appreciate that, but at the same time, you know, why can't our finance department find out whether we paid that invoice? On my business, I can go back 8 or 10 years and
Yes,
tell
sir.
you if the invoice was paid.
Sure, got you. And we can do that. They're not in disarray. I just wanted to touch base with Power School first to be sure they had their ducks in a row, because they went through a merger acquisition. So the former company was acquired by Power School, and so I wanted to check with them first to make sure that they were correct. But we can do that, yes.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no lights, I believe we are ready to vote. I think you can find this under budget amendments. All right, that motion did pass. So now we have several FYI items, and do you want to speak on any of those? Okay. Then we now are going to take a break for an attorney-client meeting. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor say aye. All right, we are adjourned.